My name is Stephen Fenech, and as Keith said, I have had a long association with the South Sydney Juniors. I'm actually part of the working group to establish the South Sydney Juniors Foundation. I started playing as a 5-year-old in the South Juniors and was fortunate enough to go on to play for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And so my association with the Juniors is something I've really valued. But today we're here, though, to talk about something that's really close to my heart, and the reason being is I played the game myself, and I was brought on board because I played in the juniors, but also now my current role as a technology journalist, I'm really can appreciate and understand the technology and hopefully explain it to you quite clearly in a moment. But also to my association through my brother, and how if this technology had existed when he was playing rugby league, his life and his family's life would be a whole lot different. The NeuroFlex technology is a technology that can establish what a player's healthy brain looks like. So you can see the testing involves the player wearing a headset, a VR headset, and they run through a series of multimodal tests that tracks their eyes, their head movement, and comes up with a data set that shows their baseline. So that establishes what the data values are when they are in a healthy state. Following that, if the player does then suffer a head knock, they're able to take that test again and see if there's any variation in that data. So that gives the clubs, the medical staff, precise and irrefutable information about the state of their brain health. And they are able from there to make informed decisions on a safe return to play. Now, in the case of my brother, unfortunately, this technology didn't exist when he was playing, and he was unable to have that information to gauge whether he should play the following week. Back when Mario was playing, he was one of the toughest players to ever lace on a boot, my brother, and would never want to miss a game. So the thinking back then was that you had to get back onto play, you had to continue. But unfortunately, we didn't have the information to tell us exactly his brain state. And unfortunately, because of his continual return to play while still suffering the effects of his concussions, has now resulted in him suffering short-term memory loss. Physically, my brother is fighting fit, but mentally, his brain health isn't, unfortunately. And while he knows who we all are and can tell you about every single first-grade game he ever played in his career, his short-term memory is losing his short-term memory. So he may ask me a couple of times how my kids are, how work's going. I had a coffee with him a few weeks ago, and his wife had actually dropped him off to meet me for coffee, and he thought that he'd driven his car there. And I went out to help him look for his car, and then his wife said, no, he actually got dropped off. So I took him home in my car. So that's just an example of what him and his family are going through, and the care that he now needs because of the result of his long career in first grade. Now, the science itself, I really applaud South Juniors for getting behind this. This is one of the major pillars for the South Sydney Juniors Foundation, and I think something that can offer parents peace of mind as well. The decision for a parent to allow their son or daughter to play rugby league, I think it's just been made a little bit easier thanks to the great work that Keith and the South Sydney Juniors are doing, not only providing registration and insurance and all the gear that are required so any child can play rugby league regardless of their financial background, regardless of their state of affairs, but now knowing that their safety is of the utmost importance thanks to NeuroFlex is something that's going to give parents that peace of mind, knowing that their child's safety is their first priority. I'm going to pass it over to if you want to know more about the science, I think these guys here, I'm going to pass it to James, who can explain the science behind what happens when you have a head knock, what's required to recover from that head knock, and the role that NeuroFlex plays in getting back to that point where a player is fit enough to play. Now, this is something the NRL can adopt. I call on the NRL to really take a serious look at this because they do have HIA protocols in place. This isn't meant to replace those protocols. This is meant to make them better, to give them that vital information that can tell a player that it's safe to continue to playing or whether they need to sit it out. So I'll pass over to James to explain it a little bit further.
I can just say, in following up to that At the same time, there's been a lot of anxiety and a lot of change in the way people are thinking about concussion. We've got a lot of evidence-based interventions to help people after concussion that have been emerging at the same time. Baseline testing has been around for a long time now, and what's been happening is we're refining the kind of information that we want to gather when people are concussed. Vestibular ocular testing is one of those important things that emerge from us clinically when we see someone with concussion that we want to assess. And at the same time, technology like NeuroFlex has come along to make our job not only easier, but it actually gives us a lot more objective information, because historically concussion's been assessed with a lot of symptom-based scores to really subjectively ask how people are feeling in terms of dizziness and headache and fogginess and cognitive, how they're travelling. But now we're starting to get a lot more objective tests, and we've not only got objective tests, we've got tests that give us information that's actionable for their rehabilitation. So we actually get more players recovering better from their concussion and recovering earlier. So this proactive story about good concussion rehabilitation, if you like, is something we want everyone to know about as well.